Welcome to the Attains Pilot Project Training video series. This video will cover batch uploading of assessment information. For this training, start by opening the assessment batch upload template _ final.xlsm that I shared with you via email. As you can likely tell, this template looks very similar to the assessment unit template. When using the template, be sure you are in the correct template when entering either assessment unit or assessment information. So for example, if you haven't loaded up your assessment unit information, you'd want to do that first, and you'd want to make sure you didn't open the assessment unit batch upload template to try to load assessment information. Similar to the previous template, the file contains all the same information you can enter manually into the user interface. You can choose to enter all the information at once using the all-in-one template, or load portions of the data separately using the individual tabs. The all-in-one template contains all the fields found under the assessments of Attains. It allows the user to enter the data into Excel rather than those fields into the interface. So there are a couple pros and cons to using the all-in-one versus the separate tabs. So the all-in-one is very beneficial in that you can load all the information for one use for one assessment unit at one time. So for example, I can put in my AUID, my agency code, yours would be tribe but minus state for the use of this. Cycle S assessed, I assessed it last year. So we'll just say it's an annual assessment. Similar to the others, a cell that's blue is required, but a cell that's underlined blue, that means it just has an allowable value list with it. You can continue to enter information here. So for example, the way the all-in-one works, you can only put one use name with one assessment unit ID. So if you have multiple uses for an assessment unit, you're better off using the General, Uses, and Parameters tab and entering those separately. So I'm going to continue working in the all-in-one template. However, everything I teach you on the all-in-one applies to the individuals, okay? Except for one thing, which I'll point out later. So we've already had conversations about uses for each of the tribes, and you guys submitted to me those uses that you needed populated into the system. And there's a way for you to check that. So you can see that this list is pretty exhaustive. It's got everything for every state for every tribe. So which one's yours? Well, if you can't recall, you can do a couple things. So you can click on use name, and you can scroll down, and you can go to the bottom, so all the tribes are listed at the bottom, and you can say, well, I am Fond du Lac, and so my allowable values are public water supply, wildlife, aquatic life, cold water fisheries, etc. If you know which one you want to put in, you could navigate to this tab, and you could simply copy and paste, or you can use the drop down to select it, okay? So I'm going to go to, I know that for the organization that I'm operating under, the test has a certain list too, and that is irrigation waters. So I freehand typed it because I knew exactly what it was, which you're welcome to do, but if you're not comfortable, just feel free to copy and paste it from the list, or you can always go into Attains, go into your assessment section as if you were hand entering, and you can just look at one of your assessment units that sit there. Under uses, you could look under which ones are allowed. So I know irrigation waters is, as well as the others sitting under here. But yours likely, if you're using the batch upload template, you wouldn't have any of them, so they'd be listed straight here. To take a quick step back, if you get into assessments, I'm going to leave, I didn't make any changes. If you get into assessments and all you see are these empty fields right here, if you were trying to check out your uses, what you need to do is just create a cycle for the first time. So you would say menu, manage cycle, or pardon me, let's go back. Create cycle. And then at that point you would say 2017 if you hadn't, and then you would hit create. I've already created one, so there's no need. But if you weren't able to see the assessment information, that's why. All right, so let's go back to the assessment template. The use attainment code, these mean 4 things. So F means fully supporting, I means insufficient information, N means not supporting, so not meeting, X means not assessed. So we haven't been working within the not assessed realm, so don't worry about X, but if you're going to indicate whether it's fully supporting, insufficient information, or not assessed. So I'm just going to say for the use of this, it's fully supporting. And my agency code, it'll ask for it a few times in the all-in-one template, because essentially what it's doing is combining each of these individual tabs, okay? So you're not required to submit any more information in the all-in-one, it's just combined each of those. So you can continue to navigate over to whatever else is required. However, I encourage you to take a look at other sections here in the template. So use trend, if you want to say whether it's trending, it's decreasing, it's fluctuating, it's increasing, it's stable, undetermined. Those are all ones that you can put in if you want, but like I said, it's not required. So feel free to check these out. Assessment basis, you could also say that it is monitored data if you want. You can put in assessment type. You could say I used physical chemical data for my assessment. You don't have to, but you can. But if you continue to scroll to find everything that's required, once again, we get over to the parameter name. I'm going to say mine is dissolved oxygen. You'll probably have a series of them, but you can put those in. The list is long again, but once you find it, you can always copy and paste it into other cells. Parameter use name, I know that is still irrigation waters. And parameter status name is its meeting criteria. So I said it was fully supporting previously, so it must be meeting criteria here, and then meeting criteria under the code. Like I said, those are the combinations of the individual tabs, so that's why you're duplicating information. Your parameter agency code, I'm still at state, but yours would be tribe. And this is blue. It is required, so you need to just say, if something is meeting criteria, your pollutant indicator is always no. However, if it's not meeting criteria, it's a cause for impairment, like why it's not meeting, you would say, yes, this is a pollutant in most cases. And sometimes you wouldn't. So for example, if algae was something you had a threshold for, well, algae likely isn't a pollutant. The pollutant is likely nitrogen or phosphorus. And so that's where you may say no when something is a cause. Okay? So that's the entire all-in-one template. Don't worry about these. These actually are not required. They are required if you're putting in source information, but not in general. But that's how you use the all-in-one. And that's, like I said, if you have a single use with a single assessment unit. But you are still welcome to fill out these separately: assessment unit ID, agency code, cycle as assessed. Fill out these 3 columns. Under the uses, fill out these 4 and then the other. If there are any other required, no, just the first 4 columns, you could fill out those and put in each use associated with an assessment unit. So for example, I pre-populated these for you. You can see that I have 3 uses with 1 assessment unit, okay? So you want to make sure to put that in. And then the last one would be the parameters. So if you have multiple parameters for multiple uses, which most of you will. So you'll likely want to navigate within these 3 tabs: the general, the uses, and the parameters. The other thing I failed to mention is you will have to put in an assessment rationale here. So you want to say, well, it is fully supporting because all parameters, or because DO is meeting the threshold all year. No exceedances found. It may be a different situation if you did find exceedances. And then the assessment comment, that's like if you want to send something to your project officer and say, hey, precision, if you want to say precision checks were all within range. If you want to share that with them, you may say something else. You may say, concern there will be development causing this location to not meet next year. So that's kind of information you can share with them, but this column does not become public. This one does, okay? So now you can save this as a CSV similar to the assessment unit tab in two ways. You either do the export tab and do the all-in-one export, or the general uses and parameters export like you may have already done, or you can go to File, Save As. You can browse. You need to make sure that it's saved as a CSV. I'm going to save it over Laura's assessment. I'm actually going to name my name correctly here. Laura's assessment.csv. Okay. So I've saved that. I'm going to say, yes, I'm okay with saving just an individual sheet. I'm not going to overall save it. So now to batch upload an assessment information, and if you were doing the individual tabs, you would do it the exact same way. You go to assessments, so let's say you're at the home tab, you go to assessments, you go to menu, you go to upload assessments. Because I'm using the all-in-one, I'm using a replace, but yours would likely be an update if you're using those individual tabs. Because like I said, if you're using the individual tabs, if you use replace, it will replace each of these with each other, which would be wrong. What you want to do is just update and add to. So if you're going to load these three separately, make sure to use update. But for the purposes of my demo, I'm going to use replace. So it's Laura's assessment. I'm going to say open, and I'm going to upload that file. And everything was okay. So I filled out the template the way I was supposed to, filled out the required columns, used the allowable values that were appropriate, and I had no issues. And like I said previously in the AU, if you do not hit proceed, it won't save that file. So you want to make sure you hit proceed, and it'll let you know when it's been complete. If you have any questions regarding how to use the batch upload templates, the separate tabs versus the all-in-one, feel free to contact me or your project officer. It's probably a simple way to use the batch upload to enter assessment information, but you may find that you'd rather just use the interface, and that's fine too. After you've batch uploaded, I do suggest you kind of check out that your information was loaded, and here it was, LJS123, and I can see all the information that was loaded for that assessment. So I know that my irrigation waters are fully supporting for dissolved oxygen. And I didn't put in a lot of extra metadata, but that would be here too. And that concludes the batch upload template video for assessments. Good luck, and let us know if you have any questions. Thanks.